We can start whenever.
All right, good. Hello, everyone. This is CSC Reporters. On today's segment, we'll be talking about if there should be outside sources helping on instant replays, should the NBA ban super teams, and do championships define greatness?
Okay, so to start off, I'm going to be talking if there should be a third party reviewing instant replays, and in my opinion, I feel like there should be. So for me, I'm more knowledgeable about wrestling, like you are basketball and football. So in wrestling, I feel like having a third party source would be more beneficial for the match, just because having the same ref that made the call go and review his own call, I mean, it's just bias, like who's going to overturn their own call. In the NCAA tournament in 2017, only 17% of the challenges that coaches called were overturned. And in 2016, it was only 14.5%. And in 2015, it was just 20%. So out of all the calls at the D1 national tournament, at the most, 20% of the calls were getting overturned. And I feel like that's just due to the same ref going and reviewing his own call.
I totally agree with you. More of that. Part of the reason I feel like it would be a problem is because timing of it, which I feel like should be looked on too, because that takes a lot of time. There's 3 minutes left in the game, so it's very intense, and then the ref takes 3 actual minutes to review something that should be quick and easy so that the game flow can keep going. That plays a major part.
I think that's another reason to have that third party. I think that's what you're saying, is I think it would take less time to actually review the play, because he wouldn't be going back like, okay, did I miss something? Did I not see like this or this? I think if you had that third party, he could just go and look at the play and be like, no, this is what's happening, and they would have all the angles and everything. So
yeah, I agree, absolutely. Should be a total third party for all sports. I believe the NFL does right now. They have a rules analyst or somebody up top that actually reviews the plays, because like you mentioned, no ref is gonna want to review a play and admit that they made a mistake and overturn their own call, because I mean, fans are gonna boo, fans are gonna cheer depending on what side, and they don't want to face that. And so if you can bring in that total third party, so the refs are told like, hey, you missed this call, or this is what it should have been, it would be a lot easier. It'd take a lot less time. They don't have to worry about whether they're contradicting themselves, or that takes that bias away from that.
yeah, and having like that whole period where they're looking at the film and like reviewing the call, on average it took, in the NCAA tournament, it took 1 minute and 9 seconds, and I know that doesn't seem like a long time, but in wrestling, having that minute break, that's huge. That could like sway the entire match, which way it's gonna go. And so by eliminating just like that whole, having that minute break.
Yeah, that's a huge change in momentum. Like
Yeah.
you said, like 1:09 might not seem like a lot of time, but like in the middle of that match, it could, like you said,
Oh yeah,
change the
especially if
whole
there's only
thing.
like 30 seconds left, and like that call could tie up the match, and if
Yeah,
it's just the whole match could change.
absolutely. So like you bring in that third party, they can look at it quicker, they can make a decision
Yes.
quicker, and it shouldn't take that long to make a review. If you're really having to rewatch it over and over and over again, then you obviously don't know whether it should be changed or not, and you should probably just stick with it. Like, so when you have that third party, they don't have that pressure of being on the field, everybody looking at them. They can just make the call and you go with it.
So do you think?
Exactly.
So do you think that they should put a time limit on how long that they're allowed to look at an instant replay?
I don't think there should be a time limit on it, just because then they might be rushing and then end up making the wrong call.
Well, with that third party.
But
it
with the
should
third
speed it
party,
up.
then it should speed it up, because I know for the wrestling, coaches have a brick that they throw out into the mat, and so if that third party would be there, then he could like flag the video where like the call was made, go back to that exact spot, and then watch it from there, instead of having to go through the video, find where the call was made, and all this stuff.
Absolutely, it'll just naturally speed
Yeah,
up. So
it'll
you don't necessarily need that time limit, but it'll just.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that they're not adding in the third party right now is just money.
Mhm.
The NCAA doesn't want to spend more money on a third party to just sit there and review the film. But
I think it'd be worth it. I think it's
ultimately, in
100%
the
worth
end, it would, yes.
Yes.
Okay. with that being said, we should talk about, should super teams be banned in the NBA? Personally, I don't think so. It's entertaining for the fans. There's so many benefits to having super teams. People have made a big deal about it ever since Kevin Durant has went to the Golden State Warriors. But before that, depending on what you consider a super team, determines a lot on when the super teams have been started. Going back to 1985, I would believe, they've had super teams, depending on the criteria on what you consider a super team. So that's what I want to start off first on. What would you consider a super team?
In the NBA, I would say 3 or more players that are considered all-stars. So like, I would say a big one coming to mind is the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
So the number would be 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there certain statistical aspects that they need to reach that would consider them? So Draymond Green was not an all-star one of those seasons, but they considered him part of their big 5.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that, but he was also first team all defense, I believe. So, I mean, you could also put that into the superstar category. Like, he might not have made the all-star game, but he is playing like a superstar for that team.
okay, okay. On that side, what do you see a problem with with super teams? Do you see any problems?
I personally do not see an issue with super teams. I mean, especially in the NBA, like they have salary caps, so it's not like the team with the most money can pay the best players to come there. Like with the Golden State Warriors, people are saying that those caliber players should not all be playing on the same team, but at the end of the day, winning is what matters to them. And if guys are willing to take pay cuts, like Steph Curry could be getting a max contract, but he's not. Like if those guys are willing to take a pay cut so they can build a team like that, and like great job for the organization for building a team like that. Like that's what you want to do. You want to build a super team. If anybody in the league could do it, they would.
And there's been arguments about smaller markets having problems with trying to build super teams. And you could argue that there's players that don't want to be in those big cities like Los Angeles or New York.
Yeah.
Paul George has went to 2 smaller towns or cities, I would say, in Indiana and Oklahoma City. So if those relationships are there between the players, I feel like that's when the athletes themselves will build their team within, and then the owners and GMs wouldn't have to do too much.
Yep, absolutely. And like that's a great point because you can bring up Cleveland. Nobody wants, like there's not a whole lot in Cleveland, but you got LeBron James there, Kyrie Irving there, Kevin Love there. And like it's not a big place. It's not like the city is what is drawing those guys there. Like they knew they could do something special there. Like that's what they knew they could win a championship. So that's what brings those guys together.
Exactly, and that's another benefit to having those super teams. Cleveland was having they went to the championship 4 years in a row, and their TV network ratings were very high. As soon as LeBron left and all those superstars left, they're at the bottom of TV ratings. You know, they're not even on ESPN and things like that
Absolutely.
anymore. So I feel like that does play a big role in the NBA's benefit to it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I really want to touch on like everybody can do it. It's not like just Golden State or just Miami. Like any team in the league is capable of building a super team if they do it correctly.
And there was a source that said there's 5 different arguments that states what a super team is, and depending on what their criteria was for what a super team was, listed a certain amount of teams. There was one source that said 17 teams qualified as being a super team. You could date back to even the Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
a big 3.
Yep.
Even before that, the Detroit Pistons in 2004 with Chauncey Billups and all that. Like, it's always been a thing. I feel like it just needs to be within the players to start that, really, not the organization.
Yep.
And most of the problems with the Kevin Durant situation, people say, oh, he went to Golden State. Well, you don't know the relationship he has with Curry. They could be friends.
They
You know,
could.
Players work out with each other all the time.
Yep. In
Over the
off-season.
summer. So over that time, I like the way you play. We could probably do something, build something from there. and I feel like that plays a lot into it too.
Yep, it's more just wanting to play with that specific player than it is like, oh, I can easily get a championship here. But they're not, the goal isn't necessarily to build a super team as far as the players are concerned. It's just like where they want to be in that moment. And at the end of the day, it is their decision.
Exactly. And this is a little off topic, but at the same time, you could think about loyalty. Maybe some teams don't feel comfortable. Kawhi Leonard was on a potential team with the Spurs, and DeRozan was on Toronto. Got traded out of disloyalty through the organization.
Yep.
So that I feel like that would play a part in, oh, we see how this organization is. We don't want to even go there. You know,
Yeah,
things like that.
absolutely.
So I feel like situations that occur like that play a major part in teams want to even players want to even play for that team.
Yeah, because like no team, like guys might be considering, why would I want to go to the Spurs or why would I want to go to Toronto after I've seen how they just treated these guys in the past, when they, like a guy like Kawhi who's brought so much to San Antonio, all of a sudden they just boot him because they don't think he's worth it anymore.
Anything you want to add on?
I don't know. I don't have a problem with having super teams. I mean, the whole point of sports is to be the best. So why wouldn't you want to have the best guys on your team?
Yeah.
Like that just seems.
And that's another benefit to having super teams is, say it's a normal regular season game and you go to a game, it's two super teams. You're getting to see multiple athletes.
Oh
that
yeah,
are
you'll see all the
performing,
stars
you know?
on the court right
So,
there. Like,
Yep.
For the fans aspect, you're getting to see a lot of players, and then for the NBA's and the organization's aspect, you could boost prices
Oh,
for
yeah.
that because it's a benefit all across the board. And I definitely don't see a problem
Yeah.
with it.
It's just an organization building a dynasty. Like right now, everybody's saying, oh, I'm tired of Golden State winning. I want to see somebody else win. Well, go back to the 1990s when Michael Jordan
Yeah.
wins potentially 8 straight. You could argue if he doesn't go to play baseball, I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, oh, the Bulls are stacked.
Or before that with the Boston
Yes,
Celtics,
exactly.
or the Lakers.
Yes.
I feel like there's always that time frame where there's a team that's the best in that generation. And
Yes.
We're just so happy to be that this time it's Golden State.
Yeah, teams become dominant throughout the years. It's a circle. It will eventually happen. Super teams have always been a thing. Like you said, it's not a new problem.
And majority of the time they're doing it for championships.
Yep.
And with that being said, do championships define greatness?
I do not believe that they do. Championships are important, as we just mentioned. A lot of guys play for championships. Like, people want to win. Like, you go to the NBA, the NFL, anything like that. That is the goal, is to win a championship. But it doesn't necessarily become the defining factor in your career. There's been countless guys that have come into the NBA, had phenomenal careers, and left without a championship ring. Hall of Famers, tons of them. I like to bring up Vince Carter, considered one of the greatest dunkers in the world. Steve Nash, one of the best point guards ever. John Stockton, one of the best point guards ever, and never won a championship. But because they don't have, nobody says, oh, those guys weren't good because they didn't win a championship ring.
I feel like it does play a part in determining what your greatness is.
Yes.
Because obviously that's your impact on the game while you were playing. It's kind of difficult to say, yes, that's made you great because you won those championships, because there's players that have championships that were just on the team, you know,
just because they were on
they're,
the team.
you know, like, all right, what about those players that were on the team with Kobe winning those? They had 5 rings.
Yeah, I bring
Are
up,
they great?
Yeah.
You know, like,
I bring up
no.
Luke Walton, played
Yes.
with Kobe Bryant. He averaged 1 point per game and 1 assist per game through the finals. That is it. And he's won multiple championship rings with the Lakers. Didn't actually really contribute anything, but that doesn't make him a great player. I mean, I do agree with you, like, championships can help solidify your career and it can help you build that greatness, but it's not like it's the one thing that matters most in deciding whether you were great. There's a ton of other things that go into it.
So you don't think championships as an individual define your greatness? But like, what about as a team, like as a whole? Do you think that could define like a team's greatness?
And organizations, yes.
As an organization, absolutely.
So what's the difference between those two? Just
Because for team sports, you didn't do it by, like, Luke Walton.
it's not
He
by
didn't-
yourself. It's a
But he played a role in there. You know, it's probably something he's doing in practice or, you know, on the road. He probably did something throughout the season that, you know, played a benefit to
the team is
the team. So
Okay.
that's why, in some cases, championships do not. But I mean, for players like Kobe Bryant, he's earned most of those, and you could say that maybe he had help with his super team, you know. But at the same time, he worked for it, you know. And then there's people who will probably discredit Kevin Durant's championships and say he's not that great, but
Because of who he has around him.
but at the end of the day, you're not gonna look back and say, oh, I'll go with Golden State. If he goes to another team and does the exact same thing, he has 4, he has whatever he ends up with, you're gonna say he's great because he was a good basketball player, not because of his championships, because of this or that.
Absolutely.
He just wanted that more of personal accolades, I would say, is where
And I think
the
that's,
personal side comes in.
Yeah, like as far as like your career goes, like guys that are top 10 all time in assists, top 10 all time in points, like several first team all defense or first team all team in general, like those type of things, you can get for 9 years straight and not win a championship, but you did have a very great player. You could come in and change the game. You could, like that type of thing. You don't necessarily need the championships to be considered a great.
Like Allen Iverson's a good example as well. Didn't win a championship, but I feel like he's impacted the game even off the court more than most athletes nowadays.
And I like to bring up that if championships really did define greatness, then Bill Russell is the best basketball player of all time.
Yes, and no one even
And
speaks of
I
that.
don't think I've ever heard anybody say that Bill Russell is the best of all time. And the guy won 11 rings.
But there's 2 sides to that at the same time. The first side is the game of basketball is changing, so to argue generations is very hard. And
Yes.
in a team sport, it's hard to argue who's the greatest of all time because it's a team sport, you know, like individually. But boxing, tennis, I feel like it's easier to say you're the greatest of all time. But to say that someone's the greatest of all time in a team sport, one person, I don't like that.
Yeah, no, it's
That GOAT argument.
Yeah, it'll forever be an argument, and that's where when people hold like the whole Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate right now, who's the greatest of all time, who's better than who? A lot of people hang that Michael has more rings than LeBron over his head, when that isn't necessarily need to be the deciding factor in whether who is the greatest of all time.
Exactly, because you could say that LeBron's greatness is going to 8 finals in a row, like,
And with some
you know,
pretty not great teams.
Exactly.
Like you can say, oh, Michael Jordan won 6 championships to
But he's been kicked
LeBron
out of the first round multiple times
as well. Yes.
You know, like, there's
Like,
a lot.
There's a lot that goes into it. So that's why like it does help solidify your career, and it does help you become a better player. Like it can help say you're a great player, but it's not like the one thing that you have to have for it to be great for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So that's our arguments. We'll do our parting shots.
All right, so instant replays, should there be a third-party review, and would that make the review time less?
Should super teams be banned in the NBA? I don't think so. Personally, it's a benefit everywhere across the board, and we should just keep doing it for the entertainment of the fans and the beneficiaries that it comes with to the league.
And mine was, do championships define greatness? I say no. Championship rings do help solidify your career, but it is not the defining factor in whether you were great or not. They are important, but there's a whole lot more that goes into it than besides just winning championships.
That's ZSC Reporter, and we're signing off.
Okay.
That's how you